On this episode, we listen to the basketball diaries, without all the heroin, of a guy that got a gun pulled on him in a white man can't jump sort of situation. His name is Paul, and he's also the only guy I know to and won somebody in a rec game by bouncing a ball off their head. During his early years, basketball would be the only thing that's consistent for him. His parents would get divorced, he would end up living with friends, and would spend times being almost completely broke. But, as sports sometimes do, it would shape him into a point guard of life, putting himself in good positions to succeed while setting up other people around him to score. Now, as a husband and a dad, he gets to use these skills and give his wife and his daughter some of the things that he missed out on. We also talk about what it's like to be roommates with someone when they win the lottery. Let's jump in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to a Moderately Good podcast. I'm so glad to have you back. If you think about it, this would be a great time to hit that subscribe button or hit that follow on Spotify or iTunes. It just helps me out, really helps out make this thing work, and I'd really appreciate it. Before I get to my guests, we're going to do our regular shout outs. Joe Andrade Media, he does all the video, lighting, all that baloney, my guy Jason at Wish Pocket, he's my audio engineer. So if you have an event or a band or, I don't know, a presentation for work or whatever you want to sound good, you're trying to impress your new girlfriend, Jason will make a mixtape, I guess. My guy Jaron, that's at No Names Originals, support local North Carolina artists. He is a artist there in North Carolina, Morrisville to be exact, and he does custom bleaching and custom paintings. I wear stuff out of his on the podcast, so at least check him out. And then last but not least, my guy Mo, he has the Go Bubble app, and if you put in the code Go Moderately, you get a discount. I don't know what it is. I'm at this point, I'm not going to learn, so it doesn't matter. But it's more of a discount than you got before. So cut to the chase. Everybody say hi to Paul. Paul, say hi.
What's up?
So, Paul, do just a kind of quick introduction. Like, you want to shout out your social medias. You have a cool social media tag name, so like you can shout out your socials and just kind of tell people what you do.
Yeah, I guess on Instagram you can find me at the only PMac.
The only PMac.
That's right. And T-Mac definitely stole my nickname. I've been PMac since a long, long time ago.
Okay, so hang on. You're making the accusation that Tracy McGrady stole your nickname.
I mean, I'm older, right? I should have.
Did he double down and he is the only T-Mac? Like, that would be.
He's probably the official T-Mac.
Oh, yeah.
I assume.
Yeah.
And he is probably, official for sure.
Wait, really quickly. So you're obviously, you're from Houston.
I am.
You love all Houston sports.
I do.
Okay. Favorite Rockets player of all time? I'm going to make you pick one. I'm sure that there's guys you really love, but who's
Can I answer it two ways?
Yes.
So I wore number 11.
So you like Vernon Maxwell?
And I loved Vernon Maxwell.
Yes.
He didn't end well in Houston, and he kind of went off the rocker, but he's kind of back in our good graces. But how can you not love the Dream, the greatest center of all time, in my opinion?
I also like Vernon Maxwell a lot. I have a Vernon Maxwell jersey, but I'm also I'm kind of a Robert Horry fan, even though he took off.
I can just never forgive the statement he made.
So what did he say?
He said, "I can't wait to be traded." When he was getting traded, or he left as a free agent, I think we traded him. And he said, "Finally, I won't have to do this anymore." And then he made all of his money post Rockets doing that to Tim Duncan, Shaq. Like, always played with a dominant center.
I'm changing my mind.
And
now.
I was like, I don't know if you should have that dig at Akeem Olajuwon. Come on now.
I'm changing my mind.
I mean, he had all those great threes that he made was because he had a big man down low commanding a lot of attention.
Well, they were kind of doing it before everybody else, before it was cool, right?
They were.
Yeah.
They were. But I guess Akeem Olajuwon has got a really soft place in my heart. And until 2017, it was the only championship I ever experienced in my life as a Houston sports fan was the Rockets.
Right. Do you like T-Mac?
Yeah, I like T-Mac. Yeah, I don't have a problem with him. I mean, him and Yao, I think both got, kind of the short end of the stick of injuries, and it's one of those what could have been moments with them both.
Do you want me to
and-
know what could? I'll let you know what could have been. Whatever, like basketball game. It was. I don't know if it was like it wasn't 2K yet. I don't know. But that team that had Yao and Tracy McGrady. I mean, they were winning championships at my house.
Yep. Even in simulation, they were winning.
So, anyways, I
They were
derailed.
cut short, and they were really good. But yeah.
Well, I mean, did you ever go to a game and were you kind of close when Yao was playing?
Yeah.
I mean, his legs were
Tree trunks.
I
man.
mean, it's even hard to explain what they looked like. It's like a person. They were the size of a person. It was
Tree
crazy,
trunks, man.
Yeah.
I thought one of the most incredible things that I'll always remember, and for all the old heads out there, in the Summit, which is now Joel Osteen Center or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
We actually played a game in the Summit before a Rockets game when I was in high school.
Oh, that's cool.
And they were playing the Timberwolves, and Christian Laettner was a rookie.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And so after our game, we got to watch them warm up, and I was just, you're in high school, you think you're the fastest, quickest, best, whatever. You don't think you're NBA or anything like that. But just watching Christian Laettner warm up, I was like, these people are athletes on such a different level
Yeah.
than I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And that was Christian Laettner. That wasn't somebody like that we'd put on the list of top 10 athletes of all time. He was so fast, so quick.
I'm not saying that like I like Christian Laettner or anything, but I will say, I think the chip on his shoulder, it overshadowed what a good basketball player he really was.
Pretty good career.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And
Pretty good. Not great.
he was pretty good in college, pretty good in the pros.
One of the greatest college players of all time.
Yeah. Anyways, I derailed you from what you do for a living. So to kind of tell them what you do for a living and that kind of jazz.
Yeah. I have been in the staffing and hiring business my entire career. I currently have been at Indeed, which hopefully most of y'all know. I've been there for 7 years, 8 years total. I'm a boomerang. I came back. Such a great mission what that company does, and I'm so glad I got to go back to it. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about it later, but it was always a lot of pride for me to go back there and start what we started. And I didn't start Indeed, but we did start a product called Indeed Hire, and I've been with that since day one, and it's been something I'm very proud of.
That's kind of cool to be on the ground level of something, and like. I don't want to say it like a lot of people don't get it to experience that, but a lot of people don't take the risk that it requires to have those kind of experiences. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to associate too much risk with joining a company like Indeed, even though it's a startup environment.
Just your career, taking a chance on like something or.
Yeah, because I've done that. I have done that throughout my career, and I was really fortunate at one point in my career to get a job title that I didn't deserve as a TA manager, because I'd never been a manager. And that was with a startup company here in Austin called Build a Sign. And I was very lucky to get that job and help build that company. And then that kind of was my springboard to what I did the rest of my career, is grow, scale, and typically move on once that you scale it up. But Indeed, I hadn't had to do that because we continue to re-innovate what we're doing.
So when you left Indeed the first time, where did you go?
I went to a company called System Made Simple, which was a government job. We did all the IT for the VA.
Okay. And why did you want to leave Indeed?
Twofold. And this isn't a bad thing to talk about, but I was misled my first time at Indeed about what my job would be, and I was unhappy. And
maybe it was just the wrong time. Wrong timing.
Wrong
right?
timing, wrong manager.
Right.
I would have been one of the first ever recruiting managers at Indeed. They just wasn't ready for that yet. They weren't big enough to have, which is crazy to say now, thinking of 10,000 people,
right?
To have that type of role. So I was kind of going backwards. I was going back to recruiting daily, which was not something I was doing anymore.
Was it something you were comfortable with, though?
I was comfortable with it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I felt like I was taking a step back, because I had just grown this, helped grow this organization from 15 employees, 25 employees to 300 employees.
Right.
And now I'm just recruiting again. not just recruiting. I really respect the hell out of the people who do that job. It's a grind.
That's a tough job.
It's a grind.
Yeah.
And I went back, and a company had reached out to me that had just won this huge government contract, and they were like, "Hey, we're a small military company. We're a veteran-owned business, and we need to create and scale a recruiting department." And so I flew out to Syracuse and interviewed, and the rest is history there. And I stayed there for 5 years until we were bought out by Lockheed Martin.
And then you decided.
I went back to Indeed.
And went back to Indeed.
Yep. And I left on my own terms. Indeed had called me and said, "Hey, we're starting this new product. We'd love for you to come back. Would you be interested in helping us get it off the ground?" And I'm not lying. It's a true story. I literally said, because I knew that we'd just been bought out. And for people who knows companies getting bought out, you know, your time sometimes is on the runway's not long.
Yeah.
I said, "Sure, but I need to bring my whole team with me that live in Austin." I had a team all over the nation, but the people that lived in Austin, I knew that could be on site. And they said, "Sure, we'll have to interview them, but sure." And we all went.
That's a point guard in you.
Yeah.
You're like,
well, I mean, I wanted to take care of them. I wanted them to feel like, you know, I had their back, and that I wasn't just going to uproot and leave them there, because I brought them all there.
Okay, so, and being at Indeed the first time and it not being the right fit, that's what we're just going to call it. Wrong timing, whatever it is, it just wasn't the right fit. What inside of you was like, okay, I'm going to go back to Indeed? And
their mission.
Yeah, so it had things kind of changed? They kind of shifted and changed, or what?
Well, the mission was the same. Your manager, I mean, I feel like this with any job, who you report to is really going to drive your everyday life at that company, right? So if you're working with someone that doesn't believe in the mission, they're going to filter that down into you. And it's going to be a hard job for you to, if that's the reason why you're there. We help people get jobs. That's been our mission statement from the day that I ever stepped foot in any Indeed door. And I always believed that was really something cool that, and something we've added recently, and I think it's really, you know, a testament to the company being forward thinking, is we help all people get jobs, not just, you know, with the emphasis of all, no matter what your background is, what race, religion, all the things that are out there, felon, whatever it is, right? Like, we're going to help you get a job. So
it's important.
Right. And I've been without a job before, and it's scary. And the decisions you have to make when you do that they're hard, and they make it really tough to live a normal life. So it meant a lot to me.
So you were a high school athlete.
Yep.
Played in college.
Yep.
Right. Basketball.
Yep.
Point guard.
Yep.
Okay. How do you find a lot of similarities in being and what's your title, Indeed? I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah, I'm a senior manager, client relationships.
Okay. Do you find yourself like using, I don't want to say your point guard brain, but the way you help because you were talking about like managers are supposed to be there to support their teams.
Yeah.
And that's their job, blah, blah, blah. So you as a manager, is there a part of like when you played basketball, like that same mentality of like how I organize, make the team, how I get this work, knowing temperament, blah, 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 was that be fair? Yeah,
I think good and bad at times. The good part is going back to the point guard. I'm used to passing the ball.
Yeah.
And I'm used to giving people their moment. Right. You know, and there's great people who take great advantage of that. And we just talked about Robert Ory. He took great advantages of that.
Yeah.
Right. He hit some open three shots that defined his career.
I mean, I'm a little down on Robert Ory right now, but
exactly. But he took advantage. You know, I have a quote on the bottom of my email signature at Indeed that says, "Take advantage of all opportunities put in front of you." And it's what you do with it. So there's been times I've been burned by it. I've passed the ball to a candidate or to a employee, and they've, you know, turned it over. Right. And I've done a lot of that. I would say, as far as like that part of me, yes, very much still lives into me, of like empowering people and trying to make the best selves of them, and seeing them rise makes me feel a lot better.
Well, I mean, that's being a manager right there.
Right. But that's also being a point guard.
Yeah. That's what I just couldn't help but think of this kind of similarities. And just like, just really quickly, just maybe, I don't know, a couple of minutes. How did playing sports just make you more you? Like, how did it make you better? Like, I feel like that, like, even if you kind of suck at sports, it's really good to play them, right? And so what did sports like do for you as far as like your life and being able to play in high school and college and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing it did was gave me confidence, maybe too much confidence at times, and it taught me how teamwork was supposed to happen. My first love was baseball. I grew up playing a lot of baseball, and then my second love was football, and then my third love was basketball, and I ended up being the best at basketball out of the three probably, because I like the team and the fast pacedness of it.
Yeah.
And I think those are the things that really taught me how to think on the fly. I think that's where I get people say I have a quick comeback, I'm witty and things like that. That's all from just playing sports and I think, I'm trying to think of a way to say this, but going to a basketball court in high school, or I don't do it anymore. I don't play anymore, but even up until the point where I was still playing, going up to a basketball court where no one knew you and earning my spot on that court was very important to me.
Why?
Because I knew I was good. I know I didn't look good. I know I was good.
Well, it was like white man can't jump.
Yes. And so I love getting to the point where, and this is a true story, and this is no shot at anybody, but there was a court we're playing on. And I know if a friend's listening to this, he's going to know this story, but it was a 5-on-5 game. They were picking up. And
It's like high school, college?
I'm probably in my late 20s.
Okay. So
like pickup game.
Just a pickup game, y'all will go play at some court.
Right.
Okay.
I was still athletic and fast, and
You were playing
I was
pretty
still
regularly.
good. Yes.
Yeah.
I was still playing 5 times a week.
Yeah.
They started picking teams, and I was used to not always getting picked early when I go to a place that people didn't know me. But they picked up a disabled person before me. And I was so pissed, man. I was like,
Okay, and when you say disabled, like,
wheelchair.
whoa, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna. I didn't really know what you were gonna say. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and I was
who are you guarding?
I was just like, what the F, man? Like, I just couldn't believe it. But I think, to answer your question, you said in a quick time period, it taught me drive. It taught me, like, looks aren't everything. You can be the best at something without having to, to look like you need to be the best, and not to judge a book by its cover, and to work hard for it. Like, I could easily left that day, right, and said, well, I'm never playing here again. That's not the way I looked at it. I looked at it as like, I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them
Like I'm
that
gonna
I'm going to wait my game, and I'm going to wait for my next game, because now I have up, and I don't care who's on my team. I'm going to destroy whoever is out there, and I hope that team that didn't pick me wins, because that's the team I want to play against.
I thought you were gonna tell me you're gonna cross up the guy in the wheelchair.
Oh, I would have. I mean, it wasn't his fault.
But I mean, what would have been really baller is like when it came time, your time picks, you just picked the guy in the wheelchair first.
Well, that means he lost. I was hoping they won.
Because you're like, I'm gonna cross the wheelchair guy.
I would have.
Yeah.
I mean, if he was on the winning team covering me.
Oh. That's crazy. Like, I can't even believe that.
I mean, that was all the time, though. And I mean, not a disabled person. And, he's probably really good at basketball for that. I'm not trying to like dig on him. It was more about the pick. And
It's a very odd situation.
Yeah.
It probably came down to they knew that guy and they didn't know you. That's what it really probably came down to, right?
I hope.
I hope so too.
I hope.
Did you pick up next game?
Yeah, I played next game. I probably ran. Yeah. I mean, and it's fine. But that was my entire time. Like, growing up in Houston, we go to courts all the time and I always took my friend with me because I knew they wouldn't pick him up. He wore goggles and everything. And so we'd get on a team together and we'd run courts all the time, to the point where, fights would happen. People would ask us to leave, all kinds of stuff.
Wow. I kind of want to just talk about what it's like to be kind of a white kid going into a basketball court, and the majority of guys there are black, and you have to kind of earn respect. Like,
No, it's absolutely correct. I don't think you can block it into all that, right? Like, there were many courts where it didn't matter. But majority of the courts were like that. And you would see all kinds of people get picked up. You get skipped, you get disrespected, but you just can't hold it you can't get mad about it. You got to use it as something to fuel you. And when you get out there, then they start seeing you. And I never took it as like holding receipts on people, right? Like, oh, you didn't pick me, I'm going to remember that. Unless they were just, blatant about it. I would always remember, like, now, a lot of times when you go to courts, people are holding spots. Like, they know their boys are coming up there. When I got to, now they're holding spots for me, I knew I'd done what I was supposed to do at that court. Like, I got to a point where I was good enough to be respected to be playing on that court. And earned respect is important. Like, respect's earned, not given, right?
Right.
And I felt like it was harder for me, obviously. It's not just that I'm white, it's I'm 5'9", right? Like, it's not, I don't look like a basketball player. I totally get that. And it got easier as I got better in high school and I got a little more known, but it was interesting. And it taught me a lot because I went to a predominantly white high school. And so for me to go out and find those challenges, I had to seek that elsewhere, right? I wanted to go to the courts where people didn't think I should be at. I wasn't going down to Fondy.
Right.
Like that would have been, those people were way too good for me. But I was going to other courts to play where the talent was better.
Did you ever want to like take anybody with you? Like take any guys from the high school and go, hey, come with me. Let's go.
I always took my buddy with me.
Yeah. I mean, did you ever bring any other part of the team or
No.
they wouldn't? Is it like they just wouldn't be able to handle it?
No, I mean, to be fair, Adam Dunn was on my high school team.
Wow. Okay.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
he could have handled it. He probably would have gotten a fight, but no, I was really close.
It was
to,
something for you though, I guess.
Yeah, it was, I was the one taking basketball that serious on the team, probably more than others at that time. And I don't want to mention his name, but the person I always took with me was a really close friend of me and helped take care of me in high school. I lived with him a lot. And so we would go together.
Yeah. But
it was hard.
Oh, when on the little form that
I had guns pulled on me.
What? I mean, it is like white man can't jump.
Yeah, in Humble, Texas, we're playing 3-on-3 in downtown Humble, and we had one friend who was a little more loudmouth that he'd come play with us every now and then, and yeah, they pulled a gun on us and told us we had to get out of there
because y'all won.
Yeah, we were winning.
Was there any part of you that was like, okay, I'm gonna pull back?
Oh yeah, I didn't go back to that court.
No. I mean, like during the game, you're like, I'm gonna let off the gas a little bit.
Never.
Did you have any inclination a gun would be pulled on you?
No.
Okay,
no,
so
that's
why you kept your foot on the gas, is because you're like,
right.
They're not gonna. There's nothing crazy gonna happen.
I don't know if you remember Hoop It Up. You remember Hoop It Up tournaments?
Yes.
I was playing a Hoop It Up tournament. We had won. We were actually playing in the parking lot at Greens Point Mall. Was where Hoop It Up was.
Guns Point Mall.
Guns Point, yeah. And we're beating this team pretty bad. And I don't know if you remember the way the basketball goals were there. The wood was on the baseline. So the goal would come up, there was wood, the goal would come up here. So you could, you go underneath the goal, and this dude just reared back and he knocked my tooth through my cheek with one punch.
Dang.
Yeah. I mean, my jaw was so swollen. And we had won that tournament, so we had to go to Oklahoma City and play for the state tournament or the national tournament after that. And my jaw was so swollen.
That's crazy, dude.
Yep.
I just want to spin back to like just one thing about like Indeed and you as a manager. You were talking about how like you can't be afraid to hand things off to people, like to pass the ball.
Yep.
Like you have to put the ball in your hands and trust that they're gonna make the shot or close the deal or whatever it is, right? So, but it doesn't always happen.
Yep.
Right. So, what do you do to keep yourself from getting timid about making that pass? You know what I mean? Because like it'd be real easy to get in your head and go, well, like I gave Sally this one task and she didn't do it, so I don't want to put more responsibility on her. But really, the honest answer is you should be putting more responsibility on her because she's not going to learn, right? So like, how do you keep from getting timid about like, because that is part of really being a good manager, I think, right?
Well, I think you're not passing the ball for a game-winning shot anymore. Now you're passing the ball, maybe when it's a little less important.
Right?
You're giving them, you're not giving them, but you're trying to get that muscle working for them, where maybe it's not such a pressure situation. Maybe it's not such a all on you situation where if you fail, it's completely on you.
Right.
Like I think of it more as like, let me give you a couple passes where you have a wide open layup.
Right.
instead of maybe having to take a game-winning shot.
Well, and building some confidence, I guess,
Yep,
right?
building the confidence and making sure they can do it, because
Right.
there are people who can't even make the open layup, right? Like,
Right.
and they're just, that's not where they should be, and it's, you know, you got to find the right spot for them.
Right people on the bus, wrong people off, right?
Yeah, you need trainers, you need all the things to make a good team.
What's your do you have just like one favorite basketball story, like anytime, high school, college, anything, just like your favorite basketball story or good sports story?
I have a funny, ironic basketball story.
I'll take it.
We were playing Willis High School. It was either my sophomore or my junior year, and Michael Bishop played for Willis at the time. I don't know if you remember that name or not. He played for Kansas State and went on to the pros, but was an amazing football player for Kansas State.
He was quarterback
for
right.
K-State. Yeah. He was like the first not big quarterback, but first transfer guy there that made them really well. He didn't win the Heisman, but he was considered for the Heisman and all that. He was a super athlete. I was crossing him over in a game, and I got a little cocky with him, and I kept going with it. And he just reached out and slapped the dog shit out of me.
Like in the face?
Yes.
And so I'm assuming they call a foul.
Oh yeah, he got thrown out. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean, he just goes. I mean, it was so loud. I mean, he just slapped me. I'm glad he didn't hit me, because he probably would have knocked me out.
Right.
But because he was a strong guy, but that was a pretty good one, because at the time I didn't realize who he was.
Well, I mean, he might not have been Michael Bishop yet.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I knew he was good at football, but I didn't know he was like going to be what he ended up being.
Right.
But yeah, he got me pretty good.
Is that the hardest foul you've ever gotten?
No.
What's your hardest foul?
Calvin Murphy Jr. actually.
No way.
Twice.
What? Same
yeah,
game?
2 years apart.
Oh.
A year apart. He gave me a scar on this eye, which I still have, and then the next year he gave me a scar on this eye. He played for Straight Jesuit, and he was really good. He was fast, and we were always next to each other in stats in Houston. And at Straight Jesuit back then, their goal was pretty close to a brick wall. And 2 years in a row, he threw me into that wall, and I had to get stitches.
You were a big shit talker.
Not really. And even like as I got older, I became one if you started it. Right?
Okay.
If you started running your mouth at me, I was going to run my mouth back. I wasn't going to let you just run your mouth at me. Now, once I got into like college intramurals, that was my sports passion at that point, because I wasn't playing any sports anymore.
Right.
That's where I started talking a lot of shit.
What's some of your favorite? Do you have some favorite shit talking, or can you say them?
No, I mean, I would do things more than I would say things. There's a YouTube video out there of me crossing a guy over and throwing a ball off his forehead.
What? And
catching it and shooting it.
I can't believe you didn't tell me this before the podcast. now we're definitely have to look this video up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely putting that on my YouTube channel for sure. Would you say that you're someone that likes to take risks?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a routine person, so that makes me feel like I'm not a risky person. But I do like to carve my own path.
Right.
Right. And so maybe that's where that came from. I mean, everything that I've done in my life since high school, I was doing things that I hadn't seen. I didn't have a model for.
So in high school, you lived with one of your buddies, right?
I lived with my girlfriend for a while. I lived with my buddy for a while. I dangled in my dad's house every now and then.
Parents are divorced?
Parents were divorced.
Mom remarried?
My mom was remarried. My parents divorced when I was 11. My mom moved to Austin with her guy that she had met and divorced. My parents are married for, I want to say like 25 years. So I have two older brothers. She moved to Austin. I had to figure things out really quick on where I was going to go and what I was going to do.
So you're 11. How old are your brothers at this point?
My middle brother was 16 and my other brother was, 16 and 20.
Okay, so 20-year-old's out of the house.
He's out of the house,
He's
yeah.
already gone to college. Where'd your other brother live at?
My dad.
Okay, and you said you were bouncing between like your dad.
Well, at first I went with my mom before
Austin?
she moved to Austin.
Oh, before she moved to Austin. Okay.
Yep. And then so that already caused grief, right? You know, like I chose my mom over my dad, which is crazy to think of now that I have a kid, to think that you'd put that on anybody.
Right.
But you didn't know, you know, I was 11. I don't know better. And then a weird thing about my childhood, and I've even told my mom and dad this, is I remember really nothing about my childhood. Like I don't remember anything but going to church and playing sports. That's it. Like I don't remember like, I don't have like, and going, like I remember my grandma taking me to a lot of Astro games. But like there wasn't a lot in between there that I remember, like of moments and things like that. And it's not that they wasn't there. I just don't remember them for some reason. And it's not that maybe I chose to forget them. I don't know. But like I really don't start remembering things until like late in high school when I started playing basketball and started doing, you know, playing, knowing that I was going to play basketball for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, my brother went with my dad. I went with my mom. And then, you know, come to find out later, my mom had a new guy, a young guy, and they were going to move to Austin. And at a dinner, basically was told this. And
Just you, or you and your brother and your sister?
I don't have a sister.
Sorry. And you and your other two brothers. Sorry, I said sister. I don't know why I said that.
Yeah. Well, I was there with her and her boyfriend, I think is what it was at the time. And she's like, we're moving to Austin. You know, obviously you're going to go with us. And I was like, no, I'm not. And I might've been 13 at the time, 12, 13, somewhere in that area. Again, the time period is a little foggy. But they went to Austin. So I had to figure out where I was going to live because I was living with my mom at the time. And I'm sure there's a lot in the middle there of like, maybe I said I'd go with you at, you know, like while it was being planned, or maybe I misled. I don't know. I don't know if it's on me or not, but at the end of the day, I wasn't going to move to Austin.
Right.
Like I wanted to be I was building, you know,
you're just becoming a teenager.
My life had been where it's been.
Right.
And they went to Austin. And so a lot of high school, I lived with my buddy in his trailer. And
did you not want to live with your dad?
No, he was upset with me for not, you know, he saw it as a very clear situation that my mom was in the wrong and she threw away a marriage, and I still chose her over that.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying it's the right thing to do for someone at that age, but
that's a tough decision for like 11, 12, 13-year-old.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I mean,
that's adult decisions.
Right.
You know,
it was tough. And, I didn't feel comfortable going there at that point. And, you know, like I had friends who were able to help me out, you know, my freshman year of high school, I lived with my girlfriend's parents.
How was that?
It was all right. I mean, they took really good care of me. They were really nice. It wasn't great when they walked in on us one time.
Sure.
That was really uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, but they also let you stay in the house. So I'm kind of like, well, I mean, you know,
I did have my own room.
I mean, it's a bunch of teenagers in a house. I mean,
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying? Anyway, so
they asked for it.
I was just curious. Okay. And so then did you live, I guess, with your buddy afterwards?
Yeah. I mean, it all kind of went back and forth. Like I didn't stay too many places too long. And then I think my senior year, me and my dad finally had kind of reconciled a little bit, a couple times. One time he was remarried, and I went back and lived with him. And that was a crazy thing because I went back and lived with him and his new wife, and his new wife's daughter was a cheerleader at our high school.
Oh, shit.
Who I thought was really good looking when I was in 8th grade, 9th grade. Next thing I know, she's my stepsister running around the house in, you know, panties and bra. And I'm like, you can't do that. Like you can't do that. Like, that's not normal. She's like, oh, we're brother and sister. I'm like, yeah, but you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, like it was weird. And me and her are friends to this day. And she's actually met my wife because she was in town, and she's obviously, I mean, this is a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
But it was weird. But I was never welcome in that home. Like that, we moved into that home. I moved into that home with, it was her house.
And he moved in.
And my dad moved in, and then I came in, and it was always uncomfortable. So I moved back out of that house after, some bad stuff, not bad stuff, but, we didn't get along, and went back over to my buddy's house again, lived there for a while. And then my senior year, I lived with my dad alone, and he was divorced again, in a trailer for a little bit, before I went off to school.
What, did that time with your dad alone, did that heal up any stuff, or did it make it work? Was it the wrong timing?
No, we were fine. We were just.
It was tough on I'm sure there's just like.
My dad wasn't ready for that type of lifestyle. I grew up a preacher's son. My dad was a preacher my entire childhood, and that just wasn't something that was accepted. And when my dad and mom got divorced, he was no longer allowed to be a minister in the Baptist ministry.
Oh, wow.
So not only did he
lost his wife, but he lost his job.
He lost his, his profession. He was an assistant principal at the church that we grew up in.
Man, that's tough.
Yeah, it was a lot. But, I even to this day, like sometimes my manager at work will be like, you didn't say anything in that meeting. I think my whole life I've sat back and observed. And would be crazy for someone who knows me because they think I talk a lot. I don't talk a lot. I think a lot of people think I'm kind of quiet, but when I have something to say, I say what I want to say. Yeah. And I like to observe and learn. And before I say something, like I don't just jump to conclusions and be like, oh, wow, these are my thoughts and ideas. Like, I watched that with my brothers growing up, my family growing up. I think that's why it took me so long to find someone like Jessica. So,
right. I would also, again, like coming back to like being a point guard, you got to have a lot of observation coming on the court. Like I'm looking, where's everybody at? Yep. Where's everybody moving? Is there something open? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, like, it's really cool, like the metaphor that it seems like it's played for you.
Yeah. I haven't thought about
and then
that
throughout like kind of like everything, like, like going to these courts, like confrontations, like it's just your life has been like a parallel of basketball and kind of like living, you know what I mean? I would venture to say you had said like, you didn't remember anything kind of before you're 11. I'm sure you like just blocked a shit ton of that out.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure just.
I remember like, I do remember one thing is kind of funny is, I remember that we always thought, me and my brothers, and I don't remember like me and my brothers living together very often, right? Because one's 8 years older than me, one's 4 years older than me. And, I talk to my middle brother a lot now. My older brother, we talk a little bit, but we all just played golf for the first time recently together. It was the first time we've ever done that. But like, I don't remember.
How was that?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was fun. Like,
everybody have a good time?
Yeah, we had a great time. And my oldest brother's really good at golf, and I'm just learning how to play. But I don't remember us really living together besides them beating the shit out of me growing up because they were, older. I was the little one. And that, like, we always used to say that revival was a cuss word because that meant 5 days of church. We're like, oh, revival's coming. Oh, man, we're going to be at church like all week.
Oh, oh, man.
But yeah, I think I blocked most of that stuff out. I mean, I loved playing Little League baseball. Still to this day, when I drive by a baseball park and kids are playing, I'm like, man, those were my golden times as a kid.
So why did you, what didn't allow you to pursue baseball? Were you not good? Like what?
I got burned out.
Oh, just playing? Yeah,
I played my entire, I started playing when I was 3.
Yeah.
And I made varsity as a freshman. And then made all district. And sophomore year, all district. My junior year, my coach came to me and said, we need you to pick if you're going to play basketball or baseball. And I'm like, I'm going to play both. He's like, well, you're getting too late in the season to play baseball with basketball overlap. So we don't know if we're going to have a spot on the team for you. So you really need to pick. And I'm like, I'm all district 2 years in a row. Like, are you really doing this? And he's like, yep. I was like, then I just won't play. I'm going to stop playing.
I mean, that's just that, like, you were talking about earlier, like that you've always made your own path.
Yep.
And just in that moment, I knew what you were going to say before you even said it, just because like that. I mean, the little bit that I do know you, like that speaks to exactly who you are. All right. So you were saying earlier that you like gone without a job before.
Yeah.
Right. So like how many, so is there multiple times that you like, and you even alluded to like, hey, I had like kind of get scraps, blah, blah, whatever.
Yeah.
So like, has there been more than one time that you've lost your job or just like,
Well, yeah, I mean, there's
or what was the biggest, most influential? I mean, everybody loses jobs, I guess. What's the
Right.
most influential one that you had?
Yeah, I think the biggest one was, when I first got out of college, I didn't have a job, and I, had an interesting end to my college run because I got in a lot of trouble. We'd thrown a big party, and I wasn't even there, but I got put on the news as this person who did all these things, and I was in the front of our school paper. So it was just time for me to get out. Like it was time for me to graduate and move on from that. And so my degree is in exercise sports science. I was supposed to be a coach. I went on one interview to be a coach, and they brought that up. What happened in college? And I was
No
like,
way.
And I was like, "There's no way I'm going to be able to coach kids."
What year is this?
This is 2005.
Okay, so I mean, we don't even have iPhones at this point.
Nope.
Like they're just finding that shit on the internet.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep. I mean, my mugshot was there, right? Like I had to go turn myself in, and I had all these accounts of contributing to minors from the party that they tagged on me. End of the day, I'm none of that stuff's on my record anymore. But
So
I get it. Going to want to be a coach kids
sure.
with all these contributing to minors. If I was the person hiring me, I wouldn't hire me either.
Right.
Like, so I realized like that was not going to be where I needed to go. And so there was like a 4-month period where I had to figure that out after graduation, be like, okay, what am I going to go do? So that was like one period, but that wasn't the part that, I was used to being poor at that point.
Right.
But
I mean, at that point, you've been poor basically your whole life, I would say.
well, yeah,
roughly,
I mean,
right?
and I was, and it makes you a piece of shit. It makes you take advantage of things that you shouldn't take advantage of. It makes you.
It's hard to keep your compass when you're that low.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
like you're scratching and clawing. You're borrowing because to survive, and not always borrowing with intention to be able to pay it back. And you're in survival mode,
Right.
and it makes you a bad human a lot of times when you do that. And so when I got my job, my first job out of college, it wasn't making very much money, but at least it was money. And I did that for 3 years, and I loved that. I mean, it was an okay job, and it was a real job, and I met a lot of good people at it. And but I left. I got another job with a company called Dollar General, which everybody probably knows that company. All my friends used to say, "Do you get paid in dollars?" I'm like, everybody gets paid in dollars. But it was an awesome job, and my territory was all of West Texas. It was work from home, which I'd never done. My other job was like 7 to 7 in the office, like grind. Now I'm working from home all the time. I had a company car, so I didn't even have to like have a car anymore. I actually leased my car out to my brother, which is another shitty story
Sure.
that ended badly. And it was awesome. And then one day, I was dating someone, dating loose term, and they needed to go run an errand. I was like, look, I'm busy. Just take my car, my company car. And they wrecked it. And I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh man, what am I going to do here? What am I going to do here? They had towed it to a place, and I waited 3 days to tell them like I wrecked it. And they were, they didn't show that they were pissed off, but I knew. I was like, man, this isn't going well. They flew in and was like, hey, we need to have my manager flew in. They're based out of Tennessee. She flew in, met me at the La Quinta by the airport out there, and fired me and said, you showed bad judgment. You didn't tell us that you had wrecked your car. We don't even care that you weren't even driving your car. We looked at the police report. It wasn't you. So, because I told them I wrecked it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got fired. And this was in 2008. And if you know your numbers very well, that was a pretty hardcore recession.
Sure.
So I went 16 months without a job. I lived in the Triangle. And for people who aren't from Austin, know that is not a cheap place to live. It's not overly gaudy, expensive place to live, but it's close to downtown. It was
at the time, it was a pretty fancy place too.
It was, people wanted to live there.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say proudly, I was able to pay my rent. I never got evicted, but I had to scrape and claw again. And there was a point in my life where, I'm not lying, I looked around in this apartment. I had nothing left. I had sold everything to survive. Like literally sold everything. I got denied unemployment because I got fired. I was on food stamps. You know, that's the only way I was eating. But I had sold everything in that apartment. I didn't have a couch. I didn't have a bed. I didn't have a TV. I don't even know if I had a computer anymore, but must have had a computer because I was applying to jobs. But I was rock bottom. I didn't know what to do. So I mean, that was probably one of the lowest points in my life, because you're looking around, not knowing what's next. You don't know, no one was hiring recruiters, and that's what I was at the time, as a recruiter, because no one was hiring. The recession was in full kick. I think that was the forgot the name of that recession, but it hit hard.
Right.
And luckily I finally got out of it. I got a job, and that's the job I mentioned earlier, where I didn't deserve the title. Someone took a chance on me, and I was able to become a TA manager for the startup company of Build a Sign, and kind of get everything back together. But I lost friends during that time period because, they reached out, helped me. I wasn't able to give it back. Family members, there was a lot of times in that time period where, self-esteem was gone. You can only work out so many times in a day to try to get your mind right. But I mean,
was that reminiscent of like just your childhood in general?
It was that, but on an extreme
level.
Because when you're a kid,
there is support.
Someone's going to try. If you have good friends, their family members aren't going to see you die on the vine like that. I had nobody, right? I didn't have anybody to help me. People who could help me, family members, they did. They couldn't. Right? Like they were either struggling because it was a recession, or things just weren't working in my favor or their favor. I did have an uncle who helped me, and I'll never forget that to this day. He helped me pay rent a couple of times. But for the most part, man, I was just, and then you feel guilty for doing anything fun.
Sure.
Right?
Well, I think
because as you know, downtown, there'd be a lot of times you could go out around here if you were known, not spend a dime.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
And so that's what I would do. I would go out or go on the lake with Hattie and his group and not spend a dime, because I couldn't just sit in my apartment anymore. Right. And I had to do something. But also there's, me in my mind, I'm like, if I get through this, I'll never forget this. I'll never take for granted a job. I'll never take for granted the things that come along with that and the responsibilities that come with that.
Is that what kind of like during that time, is that what kind of what kept you going? Like, I guess I'm really curious about like what kept you going to because a lot of people, you said 16 months, like halfway through that would just be like kind of bucket. Like I'll just be home.
There's many times I was.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm a fighter. I'm a survivor. Right. I'm always going to give it everything I can. There might be moments where you're not always doing that, but I knew that if I could get through this, I'd come out stronger. Now, getting through it was tough, man. Like, there were many depressing nights. There was many, there's still people today that I owe an apology to, right? That I've tried to say, like, look, I was just trying to survive. And I probably took advantage of our friendship because of that. And I apologize. So, at the end of the day, it makes me respect things so much more as sadly, I should have been an adult then. I don't think I was. I wasn't an adult until real responsibility came with that. And at that point, my only responsibility was to myself and to what my lifestyle wanted or needed to be. Ironically, like the close of that was me getting that job, but also like the last final knife in kind of the back was my first day at that new job. I went to go to work, and go outside, my car is gone. I got repoed.
Oh, no way.
I was like, well, that's the end, right? But I had to call my work and be like, hey, I got to figure out a way to get here. And luckily at this point, my relationship with my family was a lot better. And my dad was like, hey, I'm going to drive a truck up there. You can use this truck until you get on your feet. So he helped me out there.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh. Well, we met kind of in two ways. One, we have a mutual, my ex-wife, and y'all work together.
Yep.
But then the other thing is, we both, I still love the Texans.
I do too.
Okay, just checking. You know what I mean? You could have bailed. I don't have bail in me.
I don't have bail in me either. I mean, I have, you know.
Can we just really quickly just like maybe have like a therapy session around how it feels to have such an amazing quarterback and feel like such a bright future, and then have everything just ripped out of your soul, like in one fell swoop? It's just like everything was just gone.
Dude, I still remember, I don't know if you remember this or not, when we won the World Series in 2017.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, the Astros won.
Yes, most hated, but still won. Pennant's still there.
They didn't take it back.
Nope. That night, we won the World Series. The next morning, I woke up to the alert that Deshaun Watson had tore his knee out in practice.
Oh,
remember that?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you giveth and you taketh away. You know, I'm like,
and I feel like it's just like kind of the agony of a Houston sports fan.
Yeah, we're not going to give you too much, Houston. Like, we'll let you have this World Series, and then we're also going to punch you later with that too, by the way. But I remember that next day, I was like, well, there goes that season. But yeah, being a Texans fan is hard. Being an Oilers fan was hard. You know, people always talk about, oh, and the Oilers are gone. Look, man, Oilers they never went to an AFC championship.
Right.
I've never experienced an AFC championship as a fan of the team I like in my life.
That's not fair.
Not even, you know, people are like, oh, we lost the Super Bowl. I'm like, I have never experienced an AFC championship game as a fan. Not in person. The Oilers have never been. The Texans have never been.
Did you watch the Bills Oilers game where,
Yes.
Okay, do you remember where you were? I remember exactly.
I do.
Where were you?
I'll keep this somewhat PG.
Yeah.
I was in 8th grade and I was with a girl, and we saw the score, and so we started messing around, and then we got done messing around, we came back and we were losing.
You're like, fuck.
I was like, you did this.
I was upstairs in my room just watching on my little like square TV, and I don't even know.
Little. You know, that thing was big.
No, it went.
The screen was small.
Yeah. I didn't even grasp the concept. I was still, I mean, I was young. Like, I didn't grasp the concept of what was kind of like happening until like, you know, years later, and you're just like, oh my God, that was such a tragedy. Like, you know what I mean? You think, oh, they just lost and it was really bad and they came back, but you don't realize like it never happened again.
Well,
like,
thank you, Matt Ryan.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That did cross that out.
Yeah.
Did it?
Matt Ryan definitely made it worse than the Oilers. So, but yeah, that was bad, real bad. But as a Texans fan, like, you know, I'm still a Texans fan. I still root for them. I still watch every game. I've watched every game probably they've ever played, unless there's been something like kept me from it. But at least Easterby's fired.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
And I think things are, you know, in sports, especially in football, either in basketball too. Astros prove it too, in baseball too. Don't be mediocre. Be real bad or be good. Can't be in the middle.
Or be the Dallas Cowboys and be just good enough that everyone is interested.
Well, they're going to be. Oh, people are always going to be interested in the Cowboys because it's the Cowboys.
Yeah, but like that, it's like, okay, this is just me. And I know the Yankees have been good, but the Yankees, the Lakers, the Cowboys, they can be whatever.
I mean, the Lakers are garbage.
And still make money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, and that's
well,
just,
I mean, you can throw UT in that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, and there's a lot of college programs you could probably throw into that.
I mean, when's the last time UT was relevant?
2006.
2006.
Mm.
And they're still the most profitable collegiate sports.
That's crazy.
Crazy to me.
And the Houston Texans group is how you met Jess.
Yeah. So I formed the Austin Texans fan group in 12 years ago, 13 years ago. No, 10 years ago, somewhere in that area. But I remember I was sitting at the old docks on Congress, which is, you know, RIP. And I asked them to turn on the Texans game. And I don't know if you remember Docs on Congress at all.
I do.
But that the one side over there had like the 3 TVs or 2 small ones, the one in the middle. He put on the small one. I was like, hey, can I get some sound on? And he laughed at me. All right. He was like, literally laughed at me. And so I had my computer with me and I started researching. I'm like, where do people watch Texans in Austin? I couldn't find nothing. And I was like, where are there fan groups in Austin? And there was nothing. There wasn't even like other fan groups at that time in Austin that I could find on the internet. And no lie, I sat there on that computer and I emailed the Texans and said, hey, my name is Paul McDonald. I'd love to start a fan group here in Austin. Would you be interested? One of those emails you kind of send like, no one's ever going to read this thing, right? They replied the next day. And it's like, we'd love to support you.
Oh, that's so cool.
How much stuff do you need in order to get this started? Where are you going to have it at? And how many people do you anticipate? I was like, oh shit, I guess I need to put a plan together.
Right.
So for the next 2 weeks, me and a couple people went to a bunch of bars on Sundays. I told them, give me a month. So every Sunday, me and some friends went to a different bar and we're just trying to basically scoping it out, like, do they have the games on? Do they have anybody here? Would they be willing to take a chance? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And at the time I was in a skee ball league, and where I met a lot of friends who are really good friends of mine today. I obviously don't play anymore, but
wait, so skee ball is like,
yep.
There's whole leagues of this?
I think there still is. I haven't played in it in many, many, many years.
Really quickly, what's a good skee ball score?
If you're averaging above 300, you're good.
Okay. Can you tell me what's your skee ball average?
In my prime?
Yeah.
I was 350.
Dang.
I mean, I won 2 championships.
What?
Yeah, I had 2 championships.
We didn't lead with 2 skee ball championships?
Yeah, put that on my resume. Yeah. 2 skee ball championships.
I mean,
met a lot of good people, but we were doing it at Betsy Bar at the time.
Yeah.
So shout out to Austin Skee Ball Lead. I don't know if they're still around, but I met some really good people there. A lot of the friends you met, I met through that group. And they were doing it at Betsy Bar. And so at the time, Lavaca was doing really poorly. I'm sure they disagree with me if they hear this. They don't love me anymore, but I mean, the place was a ghost town on Sundays.
Yeah.
If you go there now on a Sunday, it's packed. So I reached out to them and said, hey, we're trying to do this. And they're like, yes, what do you want? What do you need? How do we do this? Met with the owner, not going to mention his name. People know who he is. And we did looking back, it was so dumb. The first game we did was the Sunday before Thanksgiving week.
Oh shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that I've ran this group for a long time, I know that's a dumbass idea.
Well, but I mean, you don't necessarily know.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so they gave us this whole area and 7 people showed up. And this is when we were starting to get good too, by the way.
Yeah.
And then I was embarrassed because they had put all this stuff out on tables and everything else. People were coming, but the place was dead. And Thanksgiving week went by. 2 weeks later, we had a big game. I don't remember who it was against or what. I don't remember the details of it, but 200 people showed up.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, I've got something here.
Yeah.
So we grew that, and there's thousands of people in that group now. We don't do, we're still trying to figure out what to do post-COVID. We had one event this year for kickoff of the season, and we had a pretty decent group there. Texans still send me stuff. I have an attic full of stuff right now that they send me. They even sent it to me during the COVID seasons, which I was like, look, you don't have to send this. We're not doing anything.
Yeah.
They've sent players before. They've been really great partners. They've been nothing but, it's gotten less as the group has gotten older, but I mean, they used to send gobs and too much stuff.
Yeah.
You've been a great supporter with jerseys and things like that throughout it all. People have been really good help with that. But during that time period, is when I met Jessica, my wife, and she was the assistant GM there at that time. And
at Lavaca
Street Bar. Yep. And I mean, the funny thing is for the first 6 months of our friendship, she was in my phone as erotica. I just thought, like, I didn't know her name. She'd give me her name. But I didn't hear it, I guess. And I just thought she was gorgeous. And
You mean her name in your phone right now isn't erotica
no,
anymore?
it's not erotica anymore. That's Meadow's mom. But so every now and then I would just ask her after, hey, because she could tolerate the ask of the Texans group more than anybody at that bar.
Mm-hmm.
And so she became kind of the person who managed the Texans group for that bar. And we became friends. I mean, for a long time there, like we would hang out. I'd ask her to come to skee ball afterwards because it was across the street. I'm like, hey, when you get off work, come over and have fun. And then we started going to Master Pancake, which is still something we love to do, which they're coming back, thankfully. And we'd go to those shows together. And for a year, we were just friends. And then, that's when I realized, there was something more than that. And then, we both come from very different background, but both very tough backgrounds. And she worked her ass off to be where she's at today, just like I have. And
you respect her?
I respect the shit out of her. Like she is.
That's so important, right?
Well, I mean, just, her mom died when she was young. I'm not gonna put all of her business on this podcast, but
No.
she had a tough childhood and was working at a very young age, and just really showed me a whole different side of life. That something I had never experienced before. She's so selfless, and our friendship just really grew over that time period. And there came a time where I didn't even know I hurt her, and I hurt her really bad. And my birthday's around Christmas, and at Lavaca, I threw a birthday party, and she was working, but she took off, and I didn't know she took off, and I didn't invite her to the birthday.
Oh man,
and my whole family was there and everybody else, and she was really hurt by that. And she had sent me a text message that night or something of that nature, and basically saying like, I thought we could be more than friends. Obviously, you don't think of me that way, and that really changed us because after that, we kind of worked through that, and then we took a trip together to Universal Studios, and I'd never felt like that towards somebody. Like
at this point, are y'all still friends? Like
we're dating. We're not seeing other. I mean, I wasn't really seeing other. But, I mean, I went for a long time without seeing anybody.
Yeah,
I'm talking about years without seeing anybody, and
it's very casual at this point.
People knew. I told you kind of. My nickname has always been PMAC. Like that PMAC was still living pretty hard in me.
Mm-hmm.
Of not like I'm not like some cool player guy or anything like that, but it was like everybody knew me as like I'm going to be single. I'm not going to have, both my brothers got married at 18, and I was very keen that wouldn't be me. Not because they weren't happy or not doing what they wanted to do, just that wasn't what I wanted. They didn't both. Neither one of them went to college. I went to college, right? I'm not saying one's better than the other.
You just said you wanted a different path.
I just always went a different path.
Yeah.
And I was like, nope. Both my brothers had kids when they were, in their low 20s. I mean, at this point, I was low 30s, 32, 33, 34 years old at that time, somewhere in that area. I guess I was 34. Jessica was 22. Right. So I was like, oh, she's too young. She works in the bar scene. And like, I'm not going to mess with any of that stuff. I even made a comment to her at one point saying, if you're working in the bars, like, I'm not even consider dating you. Not because I disrespected what she was doing, just because I know that lifestyle.
Well, you felt like y'all were on a different path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I also didn't want to prohibit her.
Right.
Right. Like, that's not fair for me. Like, go do your thing. Live your thing.
Yeah.
Because I did.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to prevent her from that. Unless that's something she really wanted. Right.
Right.
And, we went to Universal Studios and we had so much fun together. And that's when I realized that moment, I said, this is the one. Like, if there ever was going to be a one, that was the one. And, we ended up getting married. I proposed to her at Universal 2 years later, at the castle at Harry Potter World. Surprised her with her family and my family. And I've been married for 5 years. We have a beautiful daughter who's almost 3.
So, would you say that, okay, so how long were y'all friends before y'all dated? A year, you said?
About a year.
Okay. Would you say that year was crucial to like kind of developing y'all's relationship and kind of ironing out some kinks? You talked about like, oh, you didn't invite her to your birthday. And that was like you had to like, you went through that kind of, I don't want to say as friends, but y'all became friends first.
Yep.
With the kind of friend respect. And then having that base, when y'all start a relationship, you just start, because I would honestly say, like, I love this when parents do this. Y'all make a lot of time for y'all. Y'all also make a lot of time for Meadow, though. Like, y'all make a lot of time for Meadow, but then y'all also make a lot of time for y'all, and y'all make a lot of time for y'all to do separate shit. Like, you know, she'll go girls trip, and she'll say, you know, like, Paul's watching her, it's so great. I love my husband. You know, like, really supportive. And I'm gonna go on a limb and say that you wouldn't have gotten there without just really being solid friends first, right? And like, you know, like similar stuff, and you're into similar things, and
I would say absolutely. And also add on what I talked about earlier about sitting and observing. Like, I watched how to do it wrong a lot and learn from that. I lived through a lot of things I said, and probably the reason why I always told people, look, I'm good. I don't need to be married. I don't need to have kids.
yeah.
Right? I don't need those things, because that's a lot of pressure and stress that I would never want to put on somebody, because I saw the other side of it. Right. And we dated for quite a bit before we got engaged. You know, we dated, I want to say, I mean, she was shocked when I proposed to her, because I'd planned it for a year that I was going to propose to her. And I probably went overboard, telling her all the time, like, you're just gonna have to live with the fact we'll never be married, knowing that I was going to propose to her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, because I didn't think she cared. I thought she was bought into, like,
being just a couple.
Being a couple that lived together and happy.
Right.
You know, but she wanted more. Right. And I wanted more, but I was trying not to show it. And
well, that's probably, I would assume that's kind of both y'all's learned habits from childhood.
Yeah.
Right. Is
protect
that toughness.
Ourselves.
Yeah.
Protect ourselves. Yeah. And yeah, I think we learned each other through that, not just from our past, but from that friendship, learning each other's tendencies, and then living with each other and dating. We figured out, you know, I still remember, like, when she quit the bar life, you know, she didn't know what to do. And I was like, look, I'm here for you. Like, and she's like me, like, she doesn't want handouts. She wants to earn everything, but she went jobless for a while, and she took a job, and she worked for the W for a long time. She was making some serious cash at that pool at the W here in Austin. And, as a young person, and now she was working overnights at one of those overnight medical clinics.
Right.
So she was literally working 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I want to say for about a year, while I was working, you know, my normal stuff. So she definitely took a huge gamble on, talk about risk. She took the risk.
Right.
Leaving the bar life, cold turkey, which is hard.
It's hard.
You know that.
Yeah.
Because that money's good.
Yeah.
And going to a job that's paying, you know, $13 an hour, working overnights, and, you know, looking for a job during the day that would, you know, and she was also, forgot about this, which I shouldn't. She was working 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and then going up to the Y and teaching swim lessons to make money.
Dang.
Yeah.
So you had said, well, I'm assuming, like, up to the point where you met her, you were like, I'm not going to get married, blah, blah, whatever.
Yep.
I feel like I know the answer. You can't look at it any other way now, though, right?
No.
Like, you couldn't imagine not having a Meadow. Like, I mean, you couldn't imagine.
Well, and then that was the next thing, right? Now we're married.
But I don't want to have kids.
I ain't gonna have kids. I'm not gonna have kids. Because I've always felt, and don't take anybody out there listening to this, don't take this the wrong way, because I know it's more than that, but I've always felt like,
we didn't have a good example of that either.
well, no, I definitely have a good example of that, but I've always in my head thought being married without kids and having a divorce is just a big breakup. Throwing a kid, that's totally different.
Yeah, and you and your brothers experienced that,
right?
Like, tenfold.
And that was no disrespect to people who've been married with no kids and get divorced. I know it's hard. It's probably really hard, but I was just like, man, if we have a kid, like, there should be ceremonies for that
Having
are
a kid
bigger than being married.
Right.
Because
it's a way bigger deal.
It's such a bigger deal. That is your blood for life. the responsibility and the commitment is so much bigger than just being married.
Did having Meadow just make you that much more of a better person? I don't want to say that. It just straightened up a lot of those other little small crooked things that you were like, these are bad habits, and they get rid of these. It just fine tunes everything. I feel like with my daughter,
fine tunes.
It fine tuned me to really go what matters and what doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I look back and I'm like, what did I do with all my time?
Right.
Like, how much time did I waste?
Right.
Doing stuff that did not matter.
Right.
And, don't get me wrong. I'm regimented. I'm a very regimented person. My daughter is very regimented. When she's out of her routine, she acts like a crazy kid. But it's also, I mean, like you said earlier, I don't want Meadow to define me. I don't want it to define Jessica or our relationship. I want it all to be one thing, but I want Jessica to still feel like she is defined by Jessica. I'm still defined by Paul. And that's our daughter. We love her, care for her. We're always going to take care of her. And she's always going to be, we're family. But I don't want it to be a part where Meadow consumes me and Jessica.
Right.
Right. Like you said earlier, like me and Jessica still do things together. We still try to make time. We're very lucky and fortunate that we have my parents who live, less than 30 minutes away. Her parents, both sets, live less than 15 minutes away. So we have, and my brother lives in Lago Vista, so not far away. So we have a lot of people who can take care of Meadow, and she loves going there. So,
well, it's not only just important for y'all; it's important for her.
Yeah, that's her family.
Like my girlfriend, her dad is one of 7, and then my dad is one of 7, right? And when you take a child to like that big of a family and they're doing like big family shit, there's just this energy. You can't explain it. Like just that. And like, it's so important I feel like it's important for her to know what that is. And like, and like I send her to my mom's house probably like once a week. Just to hang out with my mom. Yeah. Because like she can, like, you know what I mean? Like I loved hanging out with my grandma when I was a kid. Like I got to hang out with my grandma when I was a kid. I was lucky enough that she was still alive. And so I'm trying to make the most of it for her. And it's good for her to be away from us. Like you were talking, like you don't want her to be consumed by us. Like, because she was born during the pandemic. It's been hard to, she's not quite old enough. We're going to send her to like a school, like a preschool or whatever, but she hasn't been around a lot of kids. And so I worry about her like not being able to interact with kids because she only interacts with us. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so we like try to get her to hang out with her cousins and things like that, or just go to parks or do whatever because it's just so important for her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we were pretty adamant about that. She was born in February, so the pandemic started a month after that.
Right.
She started daycare in that June. So she's been in daycare pretty consistently since June. So 6 months.
Yeah.
And we started part-time and she did part-time with my mom. And then we slowly moved to full time, but Meadow's great at just being able to adapt to things. And, I just don't want, talking to my parents, they feel like it became a part where they lost who they were to be our parents.
Right.
And I want me and Jessica to always have our things that we do together.
Well, yeah.
Right? We still go to concerts, we still go to shows, we still, plan things, and we try to balance it. There's times like Friday night or, coming up soon, we're going to have something that I want to go watch. And she's like, look, I will stay home with Meadow. You go with your boys and go watch that because it's not important to me. You go do it.
Yeah. Would you say like, I don't know. Like I always look at my girlfriend like my teammate. Right? Like we're teammates.
Yeah, for sure.
And so like if she's, down, like I have to pick her up and vice versa. Yep. And like we keep a calendar. She's old school. And so we keep a calendar that we write everything on. She doesn't do like phones and stuff. But like when we put it on the calendar, like, once it's on the calendar, we've approved it. It's like, like if you have stuff to do, I'm watching her, blah, 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 whatever. And we never really it's never a fight or a discussion or anything. You know what I mean? Because it's like I'm going to take time. So you better take time too.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to feel like that
Right.
I'm taking all the time. And by kind of, I don't want to say setting that boundary, but by going like, by you taking your own time, hopefully inspires just take time, and then it inspires y'all to take time together, you know?
And you got to know what's important to the other person, right? Like,
Yeah.
Jessica knows, right? We're as we film this, the Astros are in the playoffs.
Right.
She knows that's important to me.
Right.
There hasn't always been these golden years that we're living in with the Astros, right? So she knows, like, hey, I know that you're going to have it's going to be more than normal right now.
Right.
But it'll calm back down.
It's just right now.
Yeah, it'll calm back down and we'll be back to normal. We're only time we ever get and it's not conflict between us two, it's when we don't realize it, but I'm really bad about getting excited about something and booking it. Like buying a ticket to something.
Without telling her or without asking?
Without asking, just doing it. Because I'm like, I know she'll want to do this.
Okay, so.
And it'll be months out. So it's not like an immediate impact. What's bad is sometimes I'll do it and I'll put it on the calendar. But when I go, the tickets are always something that's like selling out. So I got to do it quick.
Sure.
When it's bad happens when I realize I bought tickets to three things in 1 week. It's like a little too much, Paul. A little too much. What are we not going to go to?
Well, when I'm recording the podcast, I try to record when I can. And so the way the schedule kind of works, it's like sometimes 2 weeks in a row, I'm recording 3, 4, 5 episodes. And it starts to be a lot, because it does take time away from the family and stuff like that. And then there's other stuff just going on. She wants to do stuff or I have stuff to do or I have work or whatever. And so, man, when you were saying earlier, what did I do with my time? I think about that a lot because it's kind of now, as a dad, either I'm spending time with my daughter, I'm spending time with my girlfriend, I'm working or I'm working on the podcast or I'm maybe watching Astros baseball or maybe a little something on TV. And that's it. Everything else is that. I mean, that's the whole thing. I don't really watch TV anymore. I listen to a lot more music because I'm working out here and doing stuff. Yeah. It just, I don't know. It feels more fulfilling. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. And when you do get to sit down and just watch TV with your significant other, it's really nice because it's hey, we're doing this together.
Yeah, it's you didn't do it yesterday.
This is thoughtless.
And you didn't do it yesterday and the day before and the day. It's kind of like if you ate pizza every day, you just get tired of pizza.
Me and Jessica watch one episode of something per night.
Yeah, I think that's great. Especially
after Meadow goes to bed or while Meadow's going to bed. Meadow loves to be in her room watching her show as she goes to bed, and then we'll go turn it off and she goes to sleep. And that's the time that usually, and Jessica, as soon as she puts her head on the pillow, she falls asleep because I'm telling you, this last 2 weeks, Jessica was out of town and then Jessica was not feeling well. Shout out to all those people who can do it alone because
it's crazy, right?
There's no way. Jessica does a lot of the heavy lifting in our family with especially obviously our lawn because they have to,
right?
But man, I'm very lucky in that world of Jessica was born to be a mom, and I never knew that when I met her.
Did she know that?
I don't think so, but man, she is. I mean, she's super mom for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah, and Meadow obviously knows that too. So
it's cool to watch your spouse rise to the occasion.
Oh man, it's been crazy.
You know what I mean? And to go and to just be oh man, I'm just here to support it. That's all yours. You're doing all that. I
mean, I don't regret very much in my life. I regret some things, but one thing I look back at now is, I'm 44. I'm not young. I wish I would have done this earlier, knowing that I'd have the same mentality and expectation if I could just dial the clock back. I'm I think I did all the things at the right times for me personally, but I wish I had the energy of a younger version of myself.
Sure. What would you say? PMAC couldn't have raised the kid?
No.
Yeah.
Hell no.
Yeah.
Well, he wouldn't have the financial stability and smartness to do it, but also he would have been too selfish. But I wish I had his energy.
Yeah.
To put into this.
I feel that the person that I was before recently, I couldn't have, I think I would have raised a kid and it'd been fine. We'd have figured it out.
Shit, I don't know if I had.
But I mean, it just wouldn't have been the best for my kid. I had to get older and I had her at 44.
Yeah.
So I had to get older and some stuff had to change. And now it's just it's just thoughtless.
I had to go through my trials and tribulations. I just wish, like I said, if I just wish I could pull the energy from that person because, man, I could, I didn't really get in a lot of trouble in high school that often. When I did, well, I was reporting to nobody but my friend's my friend's parents. But when I got in trouble in high school, it was because I was staying out too late playing basketball. It wasn't because I was doing stuff that was stupid. It's because I was literally just got caught up somewhere and was playing basketball too long. I could just play all day. Like I
think this will make sense. Did playing basketball and like being on, did that feel like home? Did that feel like, like that's where you belonged, right?
Yeah.
Because you didn't have a home anywhere else.
Yeah, it was for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for sure. Like, well, it just felt like I didn't think about anything else but that.
Well, it's just, you just get away.
Yeah. I was like, and I was decent at it. So I was just constantly trying to get better at it.
Man. Well, usually like how I like to wrap this thing up is, and this is kind of rolling right into it, is, the whole idea is like how you balance your life, how you take care of yourself, especially like when you have like so many kind of like hurdles that you have to go over. So what are the things that you do now to make sure you're like the best version of yourself for like Jess and Meadow and stuff like that? You're a big runner, right? Are you like to run? I hate running.
No, I still run a lot, and, but I mix it up now. I don't just run. I try to do a lot of, flexibility and stuff as that just to keep, but I will say that it's more important to me now than ever because, we both just stated earlier, we're 44 or,
You're
older than 44 now, but we're in our mid 40s.
Yeah.
And, my health has always been important to me. I've always taken decently good care of myself. Especially, in the last 10, 15 years. But now it's so much more important because it's not just for me.
You got a little person that's depending on you.
I want to be around and able and involved with Meadow.
Amen.
As much as possible, right? I don't want, when she's 16 in high school and doing whatever she's doing, I don't want to be, debilitated because I didn't take care of myself.
Right.
So I try to take really good care of myself, and Jessica does too. Jessica takes really good care of herself. She's a little younger, but she takes really good care of herself. And, I picked up golf recently as we moved on to a golf course. So I try to play golf a couple times a week just for my own sanity, and Jessica plays with me sometimes, which is really nice for us to go out. And I think that's going to be something long-term that's going to be good for us once, we don't have to always be there for Meadow.
Right.
When we can get out there by ourselves and go play and have a good time doing that. But really, I just try to keep, a good balance into things and taking care of myself. I still run a lot. I try to run about 40 to 50 miles a month. I'm still running pretty fast. Not as fast as I used to, but I can still run, my 50 miles a month are usually at about a 7:40 pace. So I can keep up still with other people that are younger than me. And my body feels a little more. And thanks to you, I can move and throw things again because there for a while I couldn't rotate my body very well. And I think that's the main way I take care of myself is just trying to stay mobile, flexible, and, and out of pain.
You're big, you like music too though, right?
Love music. Yeah.
Do you feel like kind of music is therapeutic? Like, you just kind of like you have a certain day, you put on a certain album kind of stuff? Because like you're you collect albums too, like a big vinyl guy,
I
right?
do. I collect vinyls. Music is always going to be, it's great too because Meadow is really into music. She loves when I turn the record player on, but she has her own playlist on Spotify that she really loves. And I'm finding a happy medium for us because I don't want to sit there and listen to Cocomelon,
right,
in the car because that's annoying. But like I've got her on the Spider-Man soundtrack.
Nice.
So she loves the Sunflower Post Malone song.
Yeah.
She just watch Super Pet, so she's into Bad Blood by Taylor Swift. But for me, man, like the type of music, you could see what I play and be like, oh, I know what Paul's feeling right now. Like the type of music I play is about the mood and feeling I'm into.
What do you listen to when you run?
Movie soundtracks and classical.
Really? I listen to a lot of classical when I stretch.
Yeah. I love some good movie soundtracks with no words, because if you're running with words, you're mentally thinking about the timing of the song, like whether it be a verse.
And the way you hit.
Yeah, well, music will make
bit.
you hit.
Yeah.
But if you know, like, you know, if you listen to a song, you know, a chorus is coming, you know, this is coming. When you're listening to, you know, symphony, you don't know how long that song is because it's different.
It's really weird that like I know I've listened to classical songs more than once, but because there's kind of no words and it kind of ever flows, like you just never really know where it ends. Like, I mean, as many times as I've listened to a piece, and I'm sure there's people that play classical.
I love orchestra when I'm running.
Oh,
it's so beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I like listening to like classical orchestra kind of stuff because I can think.
Yeah.
It's also hard for me to think
when you're remembering words.
Right? And so like I never thought about movie soundtracks. That's
movie
good.
Soundtracks are good too, because sometimes it'll put you in the state of the movie. Like if you listen to what's the name of that song on Gladiator?
That main fight song, the
song, the one where he's walking through the wheat,
the field, yeah.
It's like da 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 da. That one, like you'll get those feels while you're running because you'll be like, you know, and he's walking through a field in that song, and that puts in your mind of that peace. You know,
it's kind of like it's a little bit of a soundtrack to your life at that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So you know, there's a lot of those that are really good to kind of think of, like, Dark Knight soundtrack.
Oh yeah,
is really good one to go to. I love the Harry Potter soundtrack. That's a good one. You know, and it's not all songs on the soundtrack will work.
Sure,
it's just certain ones that will really kind of put you in a state of mind that makes you stop thinking about running.
You ever listen to Kids Trap?
No.
Do you know what that is?
No.
So it's trap music
for kids.
And so like the songs are like spaghetti, and the guy that does it, I feel so bad that I can't remember his name. He lives here in Austin. It's Blake Rules. That's what it is. Blake Rules. Wow. And he does Kids Trap, and there's like kids. It's like up to like volume like 11 or something like that. And he's like, you know, it's like
place for everything.
It's like, you know, like eat your vegetables, make your bed, and he makes trap songs.
That's
so
hilarious.
It's really like I find ourselves like singing like the kids trap. That's like around hilarious. The house. You know what I mean? Because like it's got like a cool beat to it, but it's all like kids music, and she loves music too. Like I have a playlist. I had seen somewhere that they said that like if you make a playlist of like things you remember from like basically like maybe your childhood or like music you remember that a certain place and stuff, when you're feeling a mood, if you need to kind of like shift that mood, a lot of times that music will shift your mood. And so I make her a playlist of like all the stuff we kind of listen to together, which is all probably not kid appropriate.
No,
but like at some point, I mean, she'll be an adult and like we'll have this music. And so I'm hoping that
you also de-emphasize it by doing that.
I think so. My parents like, well, you probably, I mean, did you get explicit music when you were a kid? How'd you get it? Friends?
Friends.
My parents bought it.
Want me to tell you a real quick funny story?
Yeah.
I had speakers in my truck when I was 16, tape deck, of course. And I had the Snoop Dogg tape, Doggy Style.
Yes. Classic.
I can cuss on this one, right?
Yes, yeah. You've already have, but you do not.
I thought so. You know this now. You know the song where he's like, "If you don't give a fuck, then I don't give a fuck. Throw your fucking hands in the fucking air." Right. That song. Well, my dad drove my truck one day.
Oh man!
Remember earlier I mentioned my dad was a preacher.
Right.
My dad also is old and does not understand technology at all.
Right.
Never ever to this day has turned on a computer.
Really?
No.
Does he text?
Sort of. He has a flip phone, so it's a little harder for him. But yeah,
you're living with your dad's my girlfriend, like reincarnated. Anyway, there you go. And
so he had to drive around and not know how to turn that song off or turn it down with the speakers on.
And so, like, it just on loop.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So let's say I got in a little trouble. He would go, "How do you take this thing?" And made me take it out. And he broke it and everything else, but.
Well, man, did you have a good time?
Yeah, man. I appreciate it.
Dude, hey, and I just want to say, like, on this recording, I appreciate you asking, or contacting me and saying you wanted to kind of like talk about a lot of this
Yeah.
stuff on my podcast. I really, really appreciate that. And like, you know, I think that the idea of kind of like that, this kind of mixtape therapy, right? Of like, you hear other people's stories and you hear how they kind of get through stuff. And then maybe that kind of inspires you to like get through things. Right. And I just think that, you know, to your credit, everything that you've gotten is through hard work. I'll have one quick question before we go.
Yeah.
Is it easy or hard to be so appreciative of what you have now because of your childhood and growing up? Like, do you find yourself like forgetting to be appreciative, or is it just real easy to remember because you just remember how hard it can be?
No, man, it's I never forget about the bad times. And
not a torturous way.
No, to drive.
Right.
To drive. I put a post on Facebook not many years ago, saying it was the first of the month and I was paying bills.
Bone. I was going to see Bone Thugs.
I wish. Great album. East 1999.
Amazing.
Very good album. And I put on Facebook, and now looking back, I don't put stuff like this on Facebook anymore, but I put on there like, it's the first of the month. I'm paying all my bills and not even thinking twice about it. I've came a long way. Because there was a time when on the 25th, 22nd, 21st, that first of the month was coming up, and I knew I couldn't pay my bills. I knew there was nothing I could do at that point to take care of those things. And it was just such a relief that day that I was doing it without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Just paying it. And I pay, I say I pay all of our bills now. I mean, obviously it's dual income.
Sure.
But I'm the one responsible for actually taking care of them. And I don't think twice about the fact that we're able to do what we do, spend what we can spend when we want to, without thinking about some of those times where I couldn't, without, being on food stamps before, without eating cracklins and eating those. And that be my, being my food source, or, I don't ever forget those things. But the answer to your question is, it's not easy or hard. It's unforgettable. Like, I won't forget about it.
Yeah.
Because if I did, I become entitled.
Right.
And I don't want to become entitled. And I don't want to let my daughter ever feel entitled. I want her to feel comfortable. Something I don't know if I ever felt that way when I was a kid, but I don't want her to feel entitled. I want her to earn her things too.
All right. I have one more question. Do you just love being a dad?
Yes, I do. And I never thought I would say that. We'll say this. I love the feeling that Meadow gives me. And I can't imagine, I never thought I could love the way I love her.
Did people tell you that before you had a kid and you were like, nah, you're full of shit? And then it happened to you and then you're like, holy shit, they were right?
But I will say, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And we just talked about a lot of hard stuff. Raising Meadow is by far the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Is it the thing that you're putting the most intention behind?
Yeah.
Ever?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's something that's in your control, but somewhat out of your control.
Right.
Right. Like her waking up in the middle of the night. She's never been a great sleeper. Or I will say our bond has gotten much better as she's gotten older too. Like when she was, an infant, like I was still trying to figure it out. Like, what is my part in this? Not just as a dad, but like as a support to my wife and to Meadow and to everything else. And I just can't imagine a life without her now.
Yeah.
Like I can't. Yeah. I mean, it's everything we do now is to make her life easier. Not easy as in like give it to her, but easier as in where she has less to worry about and feels supported.
Well, and I would assume that, you make not easier, but in the very beginning of this, you know, you were like, I forgot what the quote you said was, but like, take advantage of every opportunity that's put in front of you.
Yep.
You're just going to put a lot of opportunities in front of her for her to take advantage of.
Yeah.
That's not making it easy. That's just, you have the ability to give her opportunity. And so you want to, so that she will want to take advantage of that. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to instill hard work and determination, all the things that we've talked about today. Like those things are going to be important to ingrain her because her mom and dad are like that. We both grinded our way to where we are today. Like there was no doubt that both of us came from, you know, we started from the bottom, from now we're here, right?
Right.
Like we worked our butts off to be where we're at, and we just want to make sure she understands that, like, and she's respectful. You know, respect is super important to me, and I want her to make sure that she's respectful and understands that growing up as a, you know, in this crazy world we live in.
Yeah. I wrote this tweet and it was basically like, I'm not worried about what my daughter is. I'm worried about who she is. Like, I want her just to, like, you can love whoever you want. You can have whatever job you want. You can do whatever things you want,
Yeah.
but you're not allowed to be a piece of shit, and you got to be a good person. Like you
Yep.
can do whatever, be whatever you want to, but
Yep.
you got to be a good person because that's important.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. Like that's,
Yeah, it breaks my heart when, like, you know, you stub your toe or something in your house or hit your something, you go, ow. And she'll come out and go, you okay, daddy?
oh yeah, it happens in my house
And
all
I'm
the time.
like, God, that's what I want right there. Like, you know, I just want her to have care and concern for others, not just herself.
Yeah. And I'm sure, I mean, you've already kind of talked to it, but like, you know, like well, this is obvious. How you treat Jess is the kind of man she's going to look for as a husband, right? Like she's going to look at you
Yeah,
as that
I
role
hope so.
model, right? And so you're showing like, hey, we're a team. And then she goes, oh, I'm part of a team. And then when she goes to look for a relationship, she's going to look for somebody that wants to be part of a team. And when it doesn't feel that way, she's going to be like, no. Like this is not how this is supposed to go. And I think that's like something super cool you can instill in your kids, you know?
Her in a relationship, I don't want to think about, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Definitely get what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine a life that doesn't involve Meadow and, you know, it wasn't something I ever expected, right?
Me neither. I mean,
Jessica was not somebody I expected, and then Meadow definitely was not somebody I expected. I was content. Saying like, and looking back, I'm like, man, that was such a
you're holding yourself back a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's such a shitty thing to think that like you were okay, like when there's so much out there for me to explore. And it goes back to sitting back and observing and hold myself to a standard.
See, like, you know, I said earlier, like, you know, I think you're a risk taker. You're like, no, I'm not really a risk taker. But I think that, I mean, I think you observe and then you calculate a risk and then you take
Calculate a risk, yes.
right? You know what I mean? And I think that's the way you are, like, that's the way you become a good risk taker. It has to have some level of calculation, right? Has some sort of level of plan, observing and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah. Like if I go to Vegas, I'm not going to be one of those people that just like blind gamble.
Right.
Like, you know, I am an odds person. Like, you know, I'm going to look and see what the smart bet is. You're not always going to win those smart bets, but I'm going to play the smart bet.
You want to feel like you have some sort of like,
or at least have fun doing it, right? Like that's why I go to the craps table. Like even if I lose, I'm going to have some fun.
I knew you were going to say craps. That's the game, isn't it?
Yeah,
Crap.
it is the game, man. That's the place you can make money quick.
Well, man.
And lose money quick.
Yeah. I ask everybody to give me a hug when they get out here, so if you don't mind. Like,
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, dude, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.